3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the No BS NLP podcast. My name is Nicholas Rave, and this is my partner in crime, as always,
Morgan Lane Bennett.
And we are here to help you get NLP out of your head and into the world. Today in our show, we're going to show you how to meet your meat, or talk about what is under your subconscious mind.
Yeah, because you can't have any pudding if you don't meet your meat. How can you have any pudding if you don't meet your meat? But seriously, meet your meat.
So the top 3 things that you're going to learn in this episode of our podcast are, number 1,
how to get out of your head. Get out of your head and into the flow. I come from both my parents are dancers. I was an athlete, skater, skateboarder, and now I'm into juggling and flow arts like that. I mean, in any of those things, when you are in your head, you're out of the flow. So the way to get into the flow is to get out of your head.
And so many people are stuck in their head because they don't want to be in their body because their body is full of trauma. And that's the second thing we're going to talk about is how you can heal trauma, emotional wounds in the body that won't heal with any other techniques.
And the third thing I cannot wait to tell you guys about is how feeling pleasure is the key to unlocking unlimited energy and motivation and even healing in your life.
This is probably one of the most important things that you can ever learn.
Who doesn't want that? You want more motivation? You want more energy? Guess what you got to do? Feel more pleasure.
So, all these things and more today on our show. But first, a word from our sponsors. Hi, it's me. I'm the sponsor. So, in order to fund this podcast, I've created 2 amazing new programs designed to help you take your NLP and hypnosis skills to the next level. The first is a program I actually started running at the beginning of this year called the NLP Dojo. The Dojo is a hands-on practice and skill-building program where you can get personal feedback on your process in real time from me. It's a super small group program and is exclusively for practitioners and master practitioners. And right now, I have 3 spots available. The second program is called the NLP Bootcamp, and it is a monthly full-day virtual training where we cover specific topics, all the important topics in NLP, like submodalities or the Milton model or parts. It's different every month. And I call it a boot camp because it's half content and half practice. So whether you are already a master or you're one of the many people I've talked to who feel like you took the trainings, but you didn't walk away with the confidence to really make use of your investment, I've designed these programs specifically for you. Now, this is literally the first time I'm mentioning either of these publicly. Up till this point, they've been by invitation only. So I don't even have websites up for these programs yet. But if you're interested, you can email me at nicholas@nicholasrave.com. Thanks, and now back to the show.
All right, welcome back. So I'd like to begin by telling you a little story. Nicholas was asking me to tell some of my modeling stories. I once upon a time was a male model.
Not NLP modeling.
Yeah, which I love.
Other kind of modeling.
I went from modeling to modeling. That was like great. 95, 96, I was in Milan, male modeling, and I was like 21. And at 22, something like that. And I am there at the Versace show, about to go walk. It was my biggest show ever. And Naomi Campbell's in the show. Tupac is in the show, and he's backstage somewhere. And all of a sudden, I look at you, like, creep over the curtain. It's like cameras and everything. It's like the Versace show in Milan is like Christmas or whatever. So they're just like, yay. And now I'm like, oh shit. I'm wearing this weird outfit and I'm like, I got long hair and I'm like 22 and I'm just like, oh my God. And as you start to creep towards the little curtain that you walk out into the lights and all the thing, all of a sudden you're like, oh fuck, what am I doing here?
What is going on?
I don't even know what I'm doing here. And then all of a sudden I can feel my body just kind of going, oh God, wait, what? And I'm like, oh God, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I could feel the whole thing kind of going like this. But then luckily I was like, well, hang on a second. What if you just actually went out there and enjoyed it? You're here for a reason. You have whatever charisma they were looking for and you can walk. That was really my thought, that I thought, you can walk. All you have to do, genius, is walk in clothing, right? Don't be that much of a male model. So all I had to do was walk, and I finally I could feel myself. I said to myself, I'm going to just enjoy this. It's going to be great. How many times is this going to happen in my life? I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to trust myself that I can put one foot in front of the other, because walking is the easiest thing in the world to do. Cut to, and then my next career was as a personal trainer. I was a personal trainer for the last 14 years, and a big part of that was realizing how complex walking actually is. how insanely complex it is, to where these guys building robots or androids, or like they still can't even build one that looks like it's not walking, like it just crapped itself, right? Like the little, it looks wrong because it's so complex. It's such
we have no idea what our minds are doing to be able to do that. How
amazing the simplest things are that we do are. And in my practice, I've actually helped a lot of people undo a lot of dysfunctional patterning in their gait by sort of repatterning their muscles. And so much of that dysfunctional patterning is caused by physical and emotional trauma that locks up in the body.
It comes down to one of the points we talked about in our very first episode. We had 3 reasons why NLP doesn't work when it doesn't work. And one of those reasons was when people get stuck in their head. To me, this is one of the most significant reasons, and probably the number one reason why NLP didn't work for me for the longest time, is because I didn't recognize the significance of the body and feeling. My journey on this path is much more recent than yours. A few years ago, I watched a TED Talk given by a woman named Amy Cuddy, or Cuddy, or Cuddy. You've probably seen it before. If you haven't, go watch it. It's awesome. Anyway, the long story, she talks about all this research that she did, and she basically explained how if you stand in what she calls power poses, which is like arms up like this or like this, for like 2 minutes, it can drastically change your biochemistry in your whole body. It can like double or triple your testosterone. It cuts your cortisol levels in half. Not only that, it changes people's impression of you. It changes how people perform on different tests. And my first thought was, number 1, wow, that's amazing. And then number 2 was, wait a minute. What about the other 23 hours and 58 minutes a day? What if my natural posture when I'm not thinking about it is like this? How is 2 minutes of doing this? I mean, it's better than nothing, but what would happen to my brain, to myself, if I changed the way that I stood all the time? This opened a path of questioning for me, and I then went on to find a guy on YouTube by the name of Elliot Hulse. Shout out to Elliot, who has changed my life more than almost any person that I can think of who I've never met one-on-one. He's an absolute genius, did some amazing videos, and he introduced me to the work of a man named Alexander Lowen. Alexander Lowen is the creator and founder of a field of psychology and treatment called bioenergetics, and that was the place where I finally started to find stuff that really worked for me. I'm not saying it's the only form of somatic psychology out there, but it was the door for me. And ultimately, there's a quote that I love that I think is kind of the crux of what we're talking about here today, which is, you can't think your way out of problems, you felt your way into. That is the problem with so much of NLP.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've said that many times in different ways. It's like you can't think your way out of a problem that you refuse to acknowledge you felt your way into. You know what I mean? So it's so much of that is a part.
You get stuck in this disconnect.
Yeah, because ultimately you're an animal first, and you got to respect that. You don't have a body. You are a body. We've said this in many, many different ways, many different podcasts, but you don't have a body. You are a body. And that was a huge realization for me as someone who spent 10 years personal training. I was a massage therapist for years. Someone who came from the body world and went to NLP, did all this stuff, and only recently, like in the last 3 years or so, did I go, oh shit. My body is my unconscious mind. I used to think the unconscious mind was like this ethereal thing and like, like
a spirit.
It's like whatever, man. But no, it's been looking at me in the mirror the whole time.
Yes.
And that to me was like, you're my unconscious mind. Holy shit. Like I just got the chills talking about it. You guys can't see that, but it's happening.
Unconscious minds love it when you talk about it.
Yeah, because I'm down with that shit. So for me, that was a huge aha moment to go, oh my God, I don't have one of these. I am one of these.
Yes.
And, you brought this quote up that the kind of where did this all start? Where we split from being a mind and body. We split off into mind and body.
Right.
Was kind of around the Descartes era when he said, I think, therefore I am, right? And ultimately, I think that should be, I think, therefore I think I am.
Yeah.
Who fucking knows?
Certainly there's a lot of different things that contributed to it, but some people point to like that was the moment when we started thinking of ourselves as this like ghost riding around in this meat machine.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, am I a thinking creature having feelings, or am I a feeling creature having thoughts? Or ultimately, am I both?
Yeah.
Because then when it's working both ways, that's where you want to be.
Yes.
And ultimately, the concept, if anybody out there thinks they're stuck in their head, the presupposition in that phrase, I'm stuck in my head, presupposes that your head is separate from your body and that you're stuck inside it.
Yes.
So the concept itself presupposes the dichotomy that we're here to reunite.
And this is cultural too, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's just we as a culture have deified the mind and demonize the body.
Yes.
Right? It's like, oh, your urges, your blah, 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 those are bad. But this thinking thing is awesome. And yet so many of the people that I see are having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, because the brain's doing the troubleshooter is going like overload, but the body's here going, hey man, what about me?
Well, so let me jump in here with a little bit of theory. So we're going to talk models again, okay? And
not this kind of model.
No, not the Zoolander thing. We're going to talk a continuation of last episode when we talked about you as conscious mind and unconscious mind, you thinking of yourself as two. And remember, we said that's not true. It's just a useful way to think about yourself. Well, now I want to propose that on the one hand, you can think of yourself as you don't have a body, you are a body, in which case you're just one. And we've talked about that idea too. But I also want to propose that you can think of yourself as three. You can think of yourself as a conscious mind, an unconscious mind, and a body. And I find this to be a very useful metaphor from time to time. And my favorite place to find descriptions of this model is in something called triune brain theory. In the triune brain theory, we have this idea that our brain is similar to other animals in the animal kingdom, and that it developed evolutionarily in a specific sequence. That the oldest part of your brain is what's known as the reptilian brain. It's literally the part of your brain that you share with reptiles. It's the only part of your brain that you share with reptiles. And that is the part that is responsible for things like digestion, fight or flight, sleep, and other bodily functions. It's like you can think of it as your body's brain. Okay. Now, you also have this thing called a mammalian brain. The mammalian brain is the part of your brain that you share with other mammals. Things like cats, dogs, all the way up to chimpanzees and dolphins. Now, those animals, chimpanzees and dolphins, actually share quite a lot of this other thing that we have that is probably the part of our brain that makes us the most uniquely human, and it's called the neocortex. The neocortex is, from an evolutionary standpoint, the most recent developed part of our brain, and it is largely responsible for both language as well as the capacity to abstract. It's the capacity to, like, step outside of things and look at them and judge things. Now, another way you can do this is you can take that reptilian, mammalian, and neocortex and you can map them onto other models of three. So have you ever heard people talk about physical, emotional, and mental? You ever seen like that, where people talk about the different aspects of your mind or you or your body or whatever? Physical, emotional,
right. And
I
like that
mental.
you have that. It's physical, emotional, and mental because emotions come before thoughts.
Absolutely.
They're deeper in there than thoughts.
Absolutely. We're getting to that. We're going to talk about that even more. Another way you can think about it is gut, heart, and head is another way that I've heard it. There's a few other different ways that I've seen that one. And another one that I really like, this is one of the ones that I get into, is it, her, and me. This is a model of three where it is my body, and her is my unconscious, and me is me. And I frequently like to think of myself as...
It, her, and me. I can see that's just a TV show.
Totally.
You're just sitting there going...
Yeah, it's definitely a theme song. And they're running around me like I'm losing my mind. Totally, I am.
Yeah.
So the idea here is I like to frequently think of this as like me and my unconscious, and we have a pet. And my pet is this animal that is my body. And speaking of last week's, my body has a name too. I gave my body a separate name from my unconscious so that I can talk to it. And my unconscious is generally the one that translates what my body is saying. Like, I'm like, I don't know what my body wants right now. And I ask my unconscious. So this comes back to, you just said the thing about it goes physical and then emotional and then mental. So I want to put it this way, okay? I'm going to tie all this together, right? And remember, these are just maps, models, and metaphors. So I want to tie all this together by saying you are living inside an animal. The way I like to think of it is babies, infants, are animals. That's it. They're pretty base animals, pretty low life forms relatively. And then they develop unconscious minds. So you were a body first. You were an animal first that developed an unconscious mind. And then after a while, by observing language and parents and all these things, that unconscious mind developed a you. It developed a conscious mind. So you're like a Russian nesting doll, right? Like you're an animal. You're a conscious mind inside an unconscious mind inside a body. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And something really trippy that actually makes a shitload of sense. Something that's like kind of like, holy shit. But when you think about it, makes incredible sense is the fact that the body and the emotions in the human body across the globe are universal.
Yeah.
That posture and facial expressions are universal across cultures, across time. Like, to me, that's like, whoa, like there's something in there that we all are first before a culture comes in and does its thing.
Well, in a sense, what you're saying is effectively emotions are a real thing, right? There's this guy named Paul Ekman who does research on human emotions. I think he's considered like one of the world's top experts on human emotion. And he's identified, I think 7, there might be 8 now, but there's 7 universal facial expressions that are across all cultures.
Well, I think there's a 9th one now. It goes like this.
Duck face?
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. So Paul Ekman, one of the things that he was able to do is by identifying these across cultures, he's pretty much able to pinpoint these things are real. They actually exist.
Yeah.
They're not just made up. They're not completely subjective. Your experience of it might be subjective, right, but it's an objective reality.
Right, that everybody's having that same thing. And
yeah.
Another sort of objective reality of human bodies, I think, is the way that trauma,
oh my God,
emotional or physical trauma, locks up in the body.
Yes.
I mean, I have spent years at massage school learning about, I was a personal trainer before I went to massage school, and I went to a fairly enlightened massage school that was sort of like not cut and dry. But they would say things like emotions lock up in the body. And you go to a regular massage school, I don't know they're going to tell you too much about that. But here, where I went, they said, yeah, just, there's certain places where certain emotions will lock up.
Yes.
Heartbreak, grief, anger, whatever you can do. It does different things. Your adductors by your groin, when they're really tight, is sexual shame. It's a whole thing. So I was like, okay, whatever you say. But it became very real for me when you just have someone on the table. They're fully just in your thing. You're just on top, and you're just going like this on one of their muscles of their back, and all of a sudden she starts crying about her dead mom, about, oh my God, like what happened? I've never really grieved before. And I was like, you can just push buttons on some people. If they're emotionally charged points, you can just go, okay, how about this? And all of a sudden, because those emotions lock up in the body, and if they're not expressed, they are repressed. And when you repress your emotions, you become depressed, and then it goes into a whole thing.
There's a word for this. It's emotional armoring.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, if you see somebody who's really hunched over and like this, whether it's their heart has been broken, or they literally have an armored shell on their back, like, don't hurt me, or their shoulders are up and you're in this thing. You can, unfortunately, or fortunately, but unfortunately for some people, you can see their emotional history in their body.
Alexander Lowen said, the body tells a story like a book, and you can read it if you know how to read it. And I used an analogy to describe this. Like, if somebody was attacked by a shark and they bit off their arm, you could just look at them and you would know that happened. But that doesn't mean that sitting at a desk for 30 years is any less visible. Oh my God,
yeah. I mean, that was the majority of my practice.
It just happened gradually over 30 years.
Explaining to somebody that sitting at a desk is repetitive stress.
Yeah.
Not to mention then you're getting yelled at, and then you're stressed out,
right.
And then you're like this, and then you spend 8 hours a day doing this, and you're like, what am I doing?
So that's the next step, is you spend 30 years, 8 hours a day at a desk, and you end up like this. But the same thing can happen if you spend 30 years feeling angry and not letting it out, or feeling beaten down, or sad, or hurt, or afraid. All that shit is real. It's a real thing happening in your body. There's a metaphor that I love to describe this. If you've ever spent time around children, let's give an example of like a small child, 2 years old, toddler, right? Younger than that, maybe. If you've ever seen a toddler like playing with one of those little boxes where they like try to stick the shapes in the different holes, and at some point they get to this place of frustration where they like flip out at a level where it's not about the toy. You don't go over and sit down the child and go, well, we need to have a talk about what is it about this toy that's frustrating you. You look at the child and you go, oh, they probably need a nap. They probably have a wet diaper. They're probably hungry. That's what's going on. I bet the child thinks that the problem is the fucking toy. Guess what? That never stops being true. When we get older, we frequently have anxiety in our body. And then the neocortex, which is also sometimes called the lying storyteller.
That's where all your bullshit is.
The lying storyteller, it makes up stories. You unconsciously ask the question, why am I feeling anxious? And it goes, oh, I can find a reason. Donald Trump, or the government, or my mom, or money, or a meteor, or global warming, or something. If it wasn't the thing you're anxious about, it would be something else. Why? Because you just have anxiety in the body. Maybe the next time that you're frustrated about something, or something is feeling overwhelming, or you're looking at how your life is falling apart, maybe you just need a nap. Maybe you need to drink more water. Mm-hmm. Maybe you need to eat better food. Maybe you need to get fucked.
At least rub one out.
Absolutely. Maybe you need a massage, whatever it is.
Have one rubbed out.
Yes. So how does this fucking happen? So this is a great analogy I heard from Elliot Hulse. He talks about how human beings, the human body, is a charging and discharging mechanism. That it charges up and it discharges. So he gave this analogy as he said, imagine you're walking down a street and a little old lady right in front of you gets mugged, there's going to be a huge amount of energy that's going to be produced in your body. And when I say energy, I mean like adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine, all this chemicals in your body that go, because when you were a monkey, when we were monkeys living in the trees, and a jaguar jumped on another monkey, that adrenaline, that energy would come up because one of two things is meant to happen. You're supposed to either go attack the jaguar and protect your fellow monkey, or you're supposed to run away and scream and let it all out and let all the other monkeys know that there's a jaguar so everyone will run.
Yeah, except for nowadays there's a third monkey who would be like this.
Yeah. So what happens, you're sitting there, you see the little old lady, and what do? Maybe you don't bring out your phone. Maybe you're not one of those people. But what do? You take all that and you go like this and you shuffle away. And then a year later, 2 years later, you go, I don't know why I keep having panic attacks. I don't understand. I don't understand why I feel anxious all the time. Or I don't know why I snap at my wife or my child uncontrollably. Another last example is one of my favorites, road rage. Okay? Anger. We'll talk about this. We're talking about anxiety for a little bit. It's not just that. Let's talk about road rage. Road rage manifests for most people in tension in the jaw. You're sitting here, you're driving, somebody cuts you off, you keep getting more, the shoulders come up, and you grit your teeth. Why? Because there is an animal that literally wants to bite a motherfucker. That there's someone, you're driving, and it wants to, Now, I'm not saying that the answer is that we should all go around biting each other. That's probably not the best way to have a functioning, civilized society. But you can't pretend that shit isn't there. You cannot pretend that it's not in your body, that animal is in there. And if you do, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's because like kinesthetic, right? That's a big deal in NLP. Kinesthetic. They use the word kinesthetic. They've sucked all the fucking feeling out of feeling and called it kinesthetic.
Some schools of NLP.
Sure, I'm just saying this, but it's like, it's K. We're just going to call it K.
Yeah,
it's not a feeling.
Yeah,
and the reason a lot of people don't get as great a results as they could from NLP techniques is because they're stuck in their head and they're not dealing with the feeling. Dealing with the feeling. Alternate title to this.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, like Nicholas said, you cannot think your way out of something you felt your way into.
We're going to say that at least 3 times here.
And I say it to the people who are, my clients who are having these attacks, these panic attacks, whatever, they are trying to think, no, it's cool, it's fine, it's not, this isn't happening, my body's not freaking out, you cannot think your way out of something you felt your way into.
It cycles you down worse.
And speaking of cycling down, you talked about posture how this can go here and those power postures and whatnot. And as a personal trainer and as a masseuse, I became very much about postural alignment. You want to sort somebody out?
Oh my God.
You want to sort someone's brain out? Sort their body out. The rest of it, like you said, the rest of it will handle itself.
I've heard it called posture is the ultimate life hack, is what I've heard people say.
Yeah, well, that was my jam for a long time because your posture speaks volumes in body language about what's going on inside, right? If you see someone across the room and they're kind of like this, unless they have some kind of injury, that if they're just kind of like this, you kind of know a little bit about what their internal dialogue is. It's the classic exercise where you have somebody slouch down for a little while and then you tell them to try and be happy.
Right.
And that shows you how the body can, really take your mind and control it.
Depression is a thing you do.
Yeah, and the opposite way is to take someone and put them in their power position, Superman, whatever it is, and then tell them to try and get depressed.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So ultimately, again, your posture speaks volumes about what's going on inside.
So one of the things that I like to point out about what this all means, that might at first sound disempowering, but I assure you, the longer you sit with this, the more you find an actual path to get results in your life. And that is acknowledging that you are not in control, and you never have been. See, I see people all the time who will say, like, what are you in control of? Well, I'm in control of my actions. I'm not. Are you in control of your thoughts? Prove it. Stop thinking for 5 minutes and prove to me that you're in control of your thoughts. Okay, you're not in control of your thoughts. Are you in control of your feelings? Of course not. Very few people would even claim that. Well, I am in control of my actions. And I would say, no, you're not. Because if I put my hand here and then I move my hand here, did I do that? Or did I ask my unconscious who asked my body to do that? Because I don't know how to do that. I can do it, but I don't know how I'm actually doing it.
Yeah.
See, here's the key. You aren't in control. You can't control the animal, but you can influence it. You can train it, actually, in exactly the same way that you train animals.
Yeah. And to think about it in the negative, what happens when you don't release the emotions, when you don't address them? What happens when you train an animal poorly? You know, what happens when a human being squashes every feeling that they've had, everything they didn't like? You know, that stress has to go somewhere in the body, and then the body has to, expend energy just to hold that down.
Yeah.
I like to use the sort of analogy of, you're a little kid, something happens you don't like, and you realize, oh, hey, I can just open this sort of cellar door in my mind and just put it in there, and then, I can go back to having a good time. And then something else happens that you don't like, and you're like, oh, I remember what I did. I put that in there, and then, okay, I can go have a good time. You're not actually dealing with anything.
I've talked to a number of clients who literally remember doing that.
Exactly.
Not literally, but like metaphorically, they remember actually going, oh, you know what I can do with those feelings?
Exactly.
I can just take them and store them. And they would tell me where they stored them.
Sure.
And it ended up being places where there was dysfunction and dis-ease in the body.
Surprise. So yeah, you just keep stuffing it in there. And again, like any problem that I help my clients deal with, it always started out as something good.
Yes.
So this is this is how they're going to deal with stress. It's no big deal. I'm just trying to enjoy my day. But eventually, the cellar door starts shaking, and you're like, okay. And you have to, now you're spending energy thinking about the stuff you haven't resolved. So that takes time and energy away from you being present, let alone thinking about your future.
Right.
So now you're still dwelling in the past, and the things inside are now turning into, like, in your mind, they're turning into monsters with tentacles that are crawling out of the floorboards when they're really just unresolved emotions or things in your life.
All demons are fallen angels. They all served a purpose at one point, and they were doing a good job. Maybe if only for a split second, and then they immediately became not useful, but they started out as something that was helping.
Yeah, and the energy that it takes to repress that unresolved emotion, I like to think of as like a kink in a hose, right? So you got the hose going, you kink the hose,
yes,
and you hold it. And now there's pressure building up in the hose, but there's also the energy that I have to expend to hold this here, and the attention that I have to spend to make sure that this goes here. All the meanwhile, I'm not enjoying my life, and something bad's about to happen.
Yep.
And that's where things like dis-ease come in, right? Everybody else says disease is dis-ease, but so many diseases are psychosomatic.
Yeah, or at least they're influenced by them,
yeah.
right? Like there's disease that's going to happen in your body, but why there? And why did it show up there? Because that's your
panic attacks, so much anxiety I'm seeing. I mean, and I want to help people. I want to find the easy way to do it, and that's kind of what we're doing this for, is to help you help even more people. But there is a fucking epidemic of panic attacks by all these control freaks who need to be like, I'm in control of my life. I'm in control of my life. I can't drive down the freeway, but I'm in control of my life. I'm in control of my life. I can't be in a room full of people, but I'm in control of everything. Like, no, you're not. It's all a fucking lie that needs to come crumbling down because you have to address your body.
You hit a word that I think is a really important one to point out and just mark for people. Tension. Yeah. So you talked about the tension it takes, but that is the thing. So what are we looking at? Tension? What's the opposite of tension?
Tension?
Relaxation is the one I'm looking for. So we've got tension and relaxation.
Release.
What does it sound a lot like hypnosis?
Yeah.
Why do you think that hypnosis, one of the reasons hypnosis is so powerful is it just helps people to let go.
Yeah, one of the best things people love is just, relax for 5 seconds. Okay.
People are literally holding their butthole tight, just like keeping all this stuff tension. And if you held your hand tense like this for a day or a week, at some point, the muscles would hurt. But at some point, they would stop sending signals to your brain that it hurts anymore. And your hand would just get stuck. like this. And most people are not even aware of the tension that's in their body until you push on it and they go, ow!
They usually, and so many of them are like, well, I'm good at squashing pain. I'm just very dedicated, and I know how to squash the pain, until eventually you just blow a gasket.
Yes.
And then you're like, okay. And that, to me, is what these panic attacks, migraines, digestive problems that people are having is like, I'm going to squash all this stuff. They know somewhere there's something wrong.
Yeah.
They're not, their strategy for dealing with stress is no longer working.
Nope. Yeah. There's a certain point when the body just refuses to go along with it.
And the body doesn't lie. You can tell me, oh, I got my shit together. But if you can't keep your shit together, your shit ain't together. The body doesn't lie, right? The body does not lie.
Yes.
And what people need to do, what I teach those people to do, are like, I can just push through the pain. Fuck my body. If I don't give a shit. You got to listen to your body.
Yes.
The pain is there. The pain is trying to get your attention. The pain is there for a reason. And if you ignore it, that's like, you wouldn't drive across country with like check engine light flashing. Right? Gunning it like, just I'm going to get to where I'm going. I'm a fucking alpha. I'm an alpha top performer, right? No, you wouldn't. You would go, hey, hang on. I got to listen and maybe make sure I do this the best way possible. And that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. So, Morgan, what do we do about this? How do we fix this?
Well, I mean, get a massage. First of all, like, go get a massage. If you can get a massage from somebody who knows what they're doing. Have somebody, it doesn't have to be sexual, but it's a caress and touch and release, and allow you to find some kind of rapport with them to let some tension out. It doesn't have to be like the emotional tension. You can find some other way to do that. But I would, as far as addressing your meat, right? Get a foam roll. If you don't have a foam roll, get a foam roll. Seriously. Like, I'm mad at you for not having a foam roll and knowing how to use it. Get a foam roll.
I'm begging you to get a foam roll. He's mad at you.
But, I mean, come on. I'm mad.
Your body
I'm
wants
mad
a foam
for
roll.
you. Like, why would you not have one? Because it's like free massage. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Balance out your posture. Be aware of it. And don't be judgmental, right? Don't be like, oh, you fucking asshole, you got shitty posture. If you catch yourself with shitty posture, go, oh, I caught myself with bad posture. Awesome. That means I'm paying attention.
Yeah.
That means I can, I got it again. Cool. And the next time you catch yourself, you go, haha, I caught myself again because I'm paying attention. That's how you break these patterns. And express yourself. Say what you want to say to the people you love. Express any kind of frustrations you have calmly and gently. Like, do it correctly, but express yourself. Don't repress yourself because you're going to depress yourself.
Yes.
Your body, come on. Give it good food. Give it good fuel. If you're going to have a few dalliances, keep them few and far between. Treat your body right. Right? Treat your body right.
Let me make a point on the massage thing. This is just a quick aside because I feel like there's so much shame and judgment that people have around their body. And I just want to say there is no part of your body that does not deserve love and touch. And if there is any part of your body that you feel like you don't want to touch or be touched, that's probably because there is trauma, tension, hurt, fear in that part of your body. And that probably means that getting that experience would be more healing than anything else that you could do.
Yeah. And unfortunately, those massages are illegal. So you have to go out and find someone to do that with you, right? And that goes right back to the last thing that I would recommend is to get laid. Get really laid. Get laid well with connection.
Learn what getting laid even means.
Yeah, not just like, but like make a connection, which is kind of what we're here for.
And break through your stuff about it too, because like so much of it is we have a hard time as a culture with that. This is not an entire episode about that. We probably should do one at some point. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what I would recommend for doing this. So everything that he just said, absolutely. Those are the absolute basics, the bare minimum that you can do.
Take care of yourself. Have a good time.
Absolutely. Now, if you want to go a step further and you want to, or if you really have a lot of trauma and you know that you've got a lot of trauma or you suspect you might, I highly recommend you learn about bioenergetics.
And TRE, I wanted to mention that one as well.
TRE, tension and trauma releasing exercises, is a really good adjunct to bioenergetics. It's kind of a simpler version of it. Bioenergetics is a pretty big field. You can go find a bioenergetic therapist. That's great. If you got the money, go do it. Learn the stuff. Read some of Lowen's books. He's written like 17 books. They're all fucking amazing.
Yeah, he's good.
So I haven't read all of them, but I've read quite a few of them at this point. But I want to give an example. What I mean, if I had to chunk up on what bioenergetics is about, to me, it's about letting the puppy go into the dog park and letting it off the leash and letting it run around in the dog park where it's not going to get hurt and it's not going to hurt anybody else. It's let it out. Have you ever seen a puppy that does that? And it's like, if you have a dog or cat that doesn't get to enough exercise, or you got a dog that you leave in the house and you never let it go for walks, and then it chews up the pillows on your couch, that's your fucking fault. That's your fault because you didn't take the dog for a walk. You are the dog in this metaphor, okay? Your body is the dog. So there are things that we got to learn how to express. We got to let them out. We talked about the biting and the anxiety and all these different things. And I was told very early on in my study of psychology and NLP in particular that expression or catharsis doesn't work and is actually harmful. Now, I will say that in some circumstances, I agree with that point. But I had this huge judgment on it because I think the people that I learned it from, that I heard that from, frankly, are really emotionally fucking repressed.
Stuck in their head.
Yeah, and they're super stuck in their head in the NLP world. And because of that, they say, yeah, not only does it not work, but it's actually bad for you to express things emotionally. Right. And you should just keep getting more and more disconnected and keep floating higher and farther back.
One of my anxiety clients, he was like, he was scared that if he addressed it, that he would lose control.
Yeah.
Which goes to the,
Oh my God. I mean, there's so much stuff about even just feeling pleasure presupposes that you're letting go of control. And so people are afraid of pleasure because they're afraid of letting go of control. So I remember when I first started learning about bioenergetics, I was working with a therapist, this woman named Susan Campbell up in the Bay Area. And she is amazing. I love this woman so much. She's so brilliant. And I asked her one time, what do you think about this catharsis? And I was like, really, like, I was almost like ashamed. Like I was afraid she was going to like scold me and be like, no. And she's like, oh yeah, I've murdered my own mother about 6 times. And I was like, what? And she said, oh yeah, I've role played with people where like, they would pretend to be my mother and I would have like a fake knife and I'd get all the anger that I had toward my mother when I was a child and I would just kill them and then I'd like strangle a pillow. And you have to get to this place where you let go of your judgment on this stuff. Biting people is wrong and it's bad. And we don't want to live in a society where you walk around and bite people. The reason you express this stuff in these environments is so you don't bite people. You pretend to get this stuff out so that when you're around another person, they don't push your buttons and you don't react at a 10 when what actually happened justified a 2. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. And just without being all thought police on it, right? You don't want to get all like, I can only think these kinds of thoughts. I must think good thoughts.
Right.
Then you're going back to like thinking about adultery is the same as committing adultery. I mean, talk about thought crimes and like the thought police.
You're not in control of your thoughts
Right.
any more than you're in control of your feelings. When a thought comes through your mind, you should have no judgment over that thought. It's just a thought. Just let it float down the fucking river.
Right. So then what is bioenergetics? What do I do? What does it mean?
So I have a short list of things that I think are really, really healthy. And they're things that I walk my clients through, especially when I do in-person breakthrough sessions, where I'll have people do the basic ones are screaming, hitting, so like beating on a bed or a pillow, or throwing temper tantrums is a really good one. Like getting that like full body involvement. Another one is crying. There's all kinds of different exercises you can do with words and movements that will elicit not just crying, but we're talking like deep sobbing, like full body, like you go back to an infant wailing and screaming and crying, that kind of stuff. Laughing is another really, really good one, and it's one I use a lot, especially when I'm incorporating hypnosis into what I'm doing. It's a very powerful way to actually heal and release energy is kind of what we're talking about here. ultimately, I think the number one most powerful thing is orgasm. I know this sounds maybe a little weird. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe this is something that's totally normal to you. But for a lot of people,
it sounds weird.
They kind of flip out. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you should think about it.
The number one energetic release that the human body is designed to do is orgasm. And there's a wonderful quote from a guy named Wilhelm Reich that says, "You cannot be neurotic and orgasmic at the same time." We probably are going to do a whole episode on this topic at some point, talk about sexual hypnosis as well. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Which brings me all the way back full circle to, we talked about how pleasure is the key to finding motivation.
Yes.
Right? Because here's the first, like, your emotions are in your body. Your emotions are feelings, so fucking feel them, right? It's like feel, and pleasure is an emotion to feel.
Yeah.
Cherish your vessel and enjoy it. Enjoy it. Give your body the pleasure. Look, there it goes ding again. Like, give your body the pleasure that it craves, that it desires. Feel more pleasure. And the way this ties into motivation is that when someone is motivated by fear or like a stick, or, oh God, I'm motivated by something negative, well, where's the fun in that? I look at the thing I got to do as a pain in the ass. Well, where's the pleasure in that? And then when I finally get my goal, it's not really going to get me where I want to go. So I don't really care about that either. So where's the
still going to feel like shit, right?
Where's the motivation? Why would you do any of that? And the people I see who are like, I'm procrastinating. Really? Well, what are your goals in life? I don't know. Well, what's it going to feel like when you get them? Huh? Like, they don't attach to the pleasure that they're going to feel either when you've achieved your goal. Oh my God, it's going to feel so great. Or the pleasure of doing it well, or even the pleasure of just getting it over with so you can be like, oh, I did it. All of those are pleasures that your body thrives on. And if you are training your body to be motivated by fear, then you're going to seek fear to get motivated. But if your mind says, don't be seeking fear, then you've now just lost your motivation.
Or if you can't even feel pleasure, because most people are so tense, there's one prerequisite to feeling pleasure, and that's being relaxed. When you are relaxed, your body's natural state is one of a low to high vibration of pleasure in your whole body. But if you have tension in your body, you can't feel it. If you have trauma, which equals tension in your body, you can't feel the pleasure.
Yeah, and reassociating my clients to the pleasure of achieving their goal, because that's what your body's, the pleasure, the lit up fantasy pleasure of achieving the goal is going to get you past, oh, there's a bump, there's a hurdle, there's a challenge, there's a whatever. Fuck that. I need the pleasure over there. I'm going to go get it.
One of the craziest things about this point is the problem with pain is that it works. It doesn't work as well as pleasure, but you can look at people, like I always use the example of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is a guy who went out and kicked ass and was super successful, and by all accounts, everyone who knew him as an asshole. Basically a self-proclaimed asshole. And I contrast that with someone like Richard Branson, who, if you don't know, he's the founder of Virgin Records and Virgin Airlines, and he's a billionaire, equally successful in by almost all accounts. But that dude looks like he is having the time of his life. Like he is having a fucking blast in his life. They're both super successful. One of them, I think, used pain and stress and fear to get themselves there. They beat the crap out of themselves to get success. The other one uses pleasure. Which one would you prefer? By the way, pleasure works better than pain. It does. But it's challenging for people to let go of pain because they think they've been trained in it since they were a child.
Right, and they're afraid of pleasure.
Yeah.
They know good old fear of pain. They know that one.
Oh, it's familiar.
Right, yeah, but they're like, I might lose myself in pleasure. Well, so what?
Do it. It's amazing.
See what it's like on the other side.
Yeah.
Get in touch with the pleasure of achieving your goal. That is the key to motivation. That's the key to having more energy to achieve your goals. And it feels fucking good, so do it. All right? Okay?
Peace, love, and NLP.
What he said.
Hey there, Nicholas here. Thank you so much for watching this episode. NLP geeks like you are exactly the reason we decided to make this podcast. Please feel free to leave a comment or question below and click the like button if you did. You can also click the logo to the left to subscribe and the box to the right to watch another episode if you want more No BS NLP. Lastly, please share this video if you know any other NLP geeks who you think might dig it. Thanks again.
Project.